Hi, and welcome to the Voice of Bold Business Radio. I'm your host, Jess Dewell. Today, we have Amy Myers joining us. Now, here's the deal. I'm going to introduce her to you in just a second. I want to set up this topic. This concept of change happens one behavior at a time. And Amy and I met at the Emerging Women Conference in Denver. We hit it off because we both are curious and we both have a lot of questions. And here's the deal. What it came down to for both of us is the way that we act and what we choose to act on really instigates and provides the inspiration and the intention for the outcomes that we are looking for as an organization. And what you're going to hear today when she and I talk are going to be things that are going to work around the concept of brain science and that we don't multitask. And how does that actually show up in our organization? What it takes to shift functions, what action somebody is taking and having them show up differently and be willing and excited to take on something new for their personal development, the team's betterment, and the company's long-term success. We're also going to be talking about this concept of work and the dichotomy around work and how it can be fun also. Amy Myers directs and consults on enterprise-wide programs and transformation efforts. She helps businesses achieve their goals, their greatest possibilities, and deliver exceptional results with her consulting programs. Right after this, you'll get to meet Amy.
Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business, the show that provides everything smart leaders need to evaluate situations, build relationships, and create solutions. Jessica Dewell candidly talks about the skills necessary to build tenacity and do more with less. And now, here's Jessica.
Organizational change only happens when people are involved, when people buy in, when people will step up and own the things that are important to the company and the company's initiative. And they have to see that, they have to see themselves being a part of that. What is one thing that you tend to repeat often about that? How do you create that buy-in with people at every level of an organization?
Well, a lot of it, I think, has to do with, like you said, engaging them, enrolling them. Let's say, again, I'm just thinking about some current work I'm doing, but let's say you are developing a new strategy. You could do that in a silo, in a vacuum with just your core leaders. But I would challenge to say, why not engage them? Because if you engage them, they will, to your point, be on board. They will feel ownership. They will see their ideas and their experiences reflected in the end results. And consequently, when we own something, when we feel a personal connection to it, we're a lot more likely to drive it then further into the organization. And then those people then can take to their teams and engage them in some aspects as well. So I just feel like it's critical to enlarge your participant list and whatever the activity may be that has to do with creating whatever the change will be. So allowing people to co-create versus just, here it is, here's what we're going to do, follow. It just, we're beyond that. I mean, that's like old dated leadership paradigm.
Yeah.
About co-creation, enrollment, and, those kinds of things today.
It makes me think about the instant gratification that people in general want and expect. Compare that to the actual time and energy it takes to invoke change. And so there's an inherent conflict built into what we do in organizations when we're looking to change or add something or make a difference in a new way, if you will. We started talking about behavior, and I'm interested from you, what makes behavior versus results the better starting point?
At the end of the day, any result you get is because people have shifted something that they do. I think when you're initially rolling something, creating a new future for your organization or a new process or a new structure, whatever it is, I think you certainly need to come equipped with a story of why. Ultimately, what are we headed towards? The vision, because it does need to touch people's hearts. It does need to emotionally compel them to move forward. I think what happens is when you leave it at that level and you say, well, in 3 years, we're going to achieve this amazing result, forge into new white space and create a whole new category. And I mean, you're right. The instant gratification of human beings can't handle that. That's way too long a time frame. So something I often say to clients is chunk the change, parse it out. And you've got to get really clear and tangible with what is it that you need people to do. So to get to that amazing story of the future, that amazing picture you're aiming for, what is it that people need to do in the next month, next week, next day, what tangibly can they do? Is it about collaborating with people differently? Is it about getting a better understanding of a customer? Is it about asking questions in the business different? Whatever it might be. I think people need those tangible behavioral directions or encouragement or coaching to be able to then say, okay, I'm actually contributing to this future that we all want. Because if we just sort of wait for 3 years and hope all the business processes do it on their own, they don't. It takes the human being. So we've got to help people take things in small steps and really be at the behavioral level.
It creates a potential for change with and really stretching ourselves as well, because to hold that space, a month is still a long time. For a lot of the people that are listening in right now, a month can feel like a long time. And 3 years, you're right, seems like forever.
The other thing, though, that what you just said reminded me of too, Jess, is that in organizations and just in life, as adults, we don't celebrate enough. We seem to, that was something we did with our kids. My husband and I do not have kids, but we have nieces and nephew and wonderful neighbor girls we adore and all of that. And as I see them, and the 3 neighbor girls are still pretty young, and, when they first start to ride a bike or when they, first go down the slide, I mean, create a lot of milestones for them. Even, I think back to when I was a kid and grew an inch, we marked it. It's like adults, it's like, no, get to work. Our brains physiologically do want sort of a reward right away. Why not work in some celebration? Why not work in milestones? I think that's so key. So whether the change is a half-year change, a 3-year change, what are the milestones? And when are you going to celebrate people taking those step by steps to get to the future? I don't know. It's a funny thing. We certainly in organizations, we're really good at giving constructive feedback. We don't give enough positive. And there's been research on that. I mean, really, the ideal ratio is 4 to 1, 4 positive to 1 constructive, or what some might call negative,
That's interesting, because for me, I lump the good and the bad into constructive because it has a purpose. And sharing the things that have a purpose and balancing, not even a balance, getting pretty close to 50-50, having it be 60-40 at any point in time, and always recognizing that if they're out of that 60-40 balance, there's a lack of connection. We are sort of hardwired to really get through our day based on memory and habit. Our brain can only handle so much in sort of current memory. So when we max that out, when we try to stuff it too much, and that's the same with organizational change, a lot of times leaders think, I've got a big event and throw lots of information at people and wow them, and then it's all going to happen. And you don't know how many times in my earlier corporate career I saw that time and time again, and I was often the one going, wait, less is more. We've got to recognize that we are amazing creatures as human beings, but in our current state on this planet, in human form. So, I would say just be kind to yourself. When we put voices to things, especially longer term, yes, as a parent, and yes, as a very involved godparent, neighbor, as an adult in a child's life. So any adult that has a child in their life for any consistent period of time, there is a more than one period where we repeat 10,000 times. Yeah. And maybe it's only 100 and it feels like 10,000. Yeah. And this is the same thing, not because there's anything for the people around us to learn, because having a safe space to know that the reminders are coming, to know that somebody is helping do this shift and bring awareness to the actions that we are taking and refine them and make sure they're directed, is good communication. It is good communication. Yeah, it is good communication. The other thing that comes to mind as I hear you saying that, it's just less is more. I just think boiling things down to just a few simple messages My first business, I remember the business plans for my first business. And I had the 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plans. Now I still have 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year plans for Red Direction. However, they look very different. They act very different because instead of having this thing I looked at once a year and checked in with things, I have a living document that I refer back to on a regular basis. It doesn't have the ins and the outs of the day-to-day processes, which are necessary and we're missing. Having everything documented of the reasons we're doing, the purpose of it, having the measurements all in one place. It's all there, just not organized. The part that I'm talking about, though, is here's where we're going. And I can look at any point in time with any data point, with any compatibility point, with any goal that we have, and know that they're close enough to alignment that the direction is still the right way to be on. Provided it's not, then a shift can occur. And the correct analysis and information needs to be brought in. So thinking about all of that, I can't even believe I said the word data point and analysis because I tend to not work from those places, Amy. Nope, don't work from those places. I work from feel first and then bring in the other things.
Throw some data in there at the end.
Yeah, you need to, don't you? And it also allows people who think differently to be able to be in an engaged, meaningful conversation about, is this really the right thing at the right time for us as a group? We see we're off track as an organization. We see something's up. How do we define the best way to get back on track?
I guess it depends on how you've deviated, how far you've deviated. If you're not, say, getting certain results that you're expecting, I think then you have to step back and say, are we still en route to the same destination? Does the same destination make sense? A matter of going into the organization and really understanding what is getting in the way. Is it something mechanistic? Processes that a technology destroy. Okay. But if it's not, often it's not. Often it is people related because, at the end of the day, the process and the structure and technology actually are run by people. So,
yes.
At the end of the day, there's usually a human being related to something that's stagnating. And it's understanding sort of the why behind it. What's the context? What's the story behind the stagnation, right? Or slowing things down. And sometimes, we know that, again, human beings simply have a hard time changing. So it may be, have people gotten enough support through change? Are people losing steam? I've worked with clients before where they are on a long haul change. And what's been discovered is leadership team hasn't communicated enough. They haven't really let people know where are they. And so consequently, and the business is, let's say, in a very tough market situation and numbers aren't looking so good, yet they're going the right direction, yet people are just simply losing steam.
What I would add to what you were saying before is that when we're off base after a year or 2 years and people are losing steam, that means there's a deeper underlying thing that's leaking. There's a leak somewhere, and usually it can be tied back to the company culture. Something in what we do versus what we say we do does not line up. And because when they do, it is renewable. Everybody has that source of energy and everybody knows what's going on. And even the space holders will need outside support, yet they will also be energized from within. They're able to maintain the energy for the space because they're not the sole provider of the motivation.
What can we do to make the change fun? But, psychologists have proven now that play is actually healthy. It's good. It's what kids do, but we lose that sense as where we grow up, unfortunately. And yet, that's where the creative innovations come from. That's where the breakthrough thinking happens. That's where the prolific ideas spurt out of people's brains, is because they're playing. They're having fun.
This is the voice of Bold Business Radio. You are listening to Change Happens One Behavior at a Time with our special guest, Amy Myers. And you know what? We just ended with fun right before this little informational break. And we've got to stay there because Amy and I agree to play, to love, to have passion can still exist while we do the work that needs to be done. I think work's gotten a bad name, Amy.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jess. Work. What about that? Let's change the lexicon. Work, fun, engagement.
Well, and I'll tell you what, I like work. Work is something that we do, and people in general want to do something, right? Comes back to this concept of behavior, to feel like they belong, to feel like there's contribution, to feel like they're being something bigger than themselves.
Yes, purpose, right? To be on purpose. Yes. People want, I mean, today, we know that, but it's not just in today's world. I think that's been a human need since perhaps beginning of time, to have meaning and purpose in one's life.
And then what happens? The meaning is also serious.
Right. Too serious.
Yeah. We must take ourselves. We want to give ourselves a break. And you said it earlier, give yourself some space and grace. Yes. And I agree. And it doesn't have to be just on birthdays. And it doesn't have to be just because somebody had a baby or got married. It doesn't have to be any of those things. It could be, hey, I'm in a great mood today. And so today, what can I do? And be a little quirky. The challenge is to be a little quirky, not to be memorable and not to disrupt things, to add and make sure that we're taking ourselves just seriously enough.
The word came to my mind is discovery.
Yeah.
Discovery. Children are in a continual discovery and imagination. Why not? Why not that? What are we going to discover today together at work, on the job, at the company? It just elevates. It just brings the energy up.
It does. And I want to stop here because we have two audiences that listen to our show. We have entrepreneurs, and there's a train of thought, and I'm calling this out right now. There's a train of thought within the world of entrepreneur, meaning I'm in my own business, I own my own business, and I'm only me, and I wear all the hats, and I'm doing this. I quit my job, and I started my own business because I want to do something I'm passionate about. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what if what you're passionate about doesn't solve a problem? And I'm like, what if not enough people have the same problem? So how do you monetize this? And I use the word problem loosely in this case. What's somebody going to pay you for? And so sometimes we need to take our passion and in our excitement for making the end change possible, even though we might be one step as an entrepreneur in that. We're bringing our passion to the part that we do well to serve others. And then within an organization, for those of us who are burnt out or thinking, I could make more money if I were doing this on my own and considering leaving, and then managers and executives that they're thinking outside the box. They could be promotable. They're approachable. They actually are naturally doing some of the things that are necessary to create camaraderie and excitement and that self-sustaining system to work in. They're bringing their passion to what they do, and they're excited about their contribution to something bigger without their personal need to solve the whole problem. And I want to spend some time there, because if we all followed our passions, that would be really cool. But sometimes our passions don't align with what our world needs right now.
Yeah, that's true. Somebody I used to work with, and he used to talk about passion meets need and capability, right? So you have a passion, have an amazing capability to support that passion, and then there's the need in the world, right? And that's the ultimate convergence that we all would want to have happen.
Yeah. All we need to do is go watch Mike Rowe's Dirty Jobs. Those are some people who are solving a need, and they're bringing their passion and their capability to do something that the world needs. They might not always line up in terms of what the passion is, but how that passion can be applied to the job that needs to be done. Yeah, I like Mike Rowe. He's hilarious.
I contend, though. I would challenge all of us to say all of us are great at a number of things. Mm-hmm. Something in that portfolio of what we're great at that we do love to do. I just believe that. I don't know if it's just a deep-seated belief in my heart.
However, if you're going to be a solopreneur or start your own business, you still need other people to bring in the capabilities that are missing to make that passion possible.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So,
I agree.
Yeah. So that's where I think you bring up a really good point. And I'd also like to add some clarification is, of course, it's possible. I say, of course, because yes, we agree on that. We just can't always do it alone. And we can't think that we have the capability to go find the people that are capable in the areas that we're not right away either. Those are skills that actually being in an organization can teach us so much. so much about the ins and the outs of teamwork and what it means to show up when we don't feel like it, what it means to show up when we have stress in our life that's outside of work, that's going to weigh us down a little bit and people are going to notice, and how are we going to show up, and do we talk about it, or do we just be sullen or frustrated and people don't know if it's at them or because of something else. And we've also mentioned briefly, Amy, this concept of what it takes to get people to show up differently. So we're in a situation, a decision has been made, it has been handed to us, and we'll be managers in this short scenario.
Yeah, right.
How do we then take that? We may or may not have been communicated well to. That's not relevant in this particular moment. How do we then go to our team and get them to show up different, to shift gears to this new, I say new, to a pivot, to a change, to a different goal?
I think what's important is you have to consider each of those people as human beings, the context they bring with them to work, what they're passionate about, what they love to do, what they don't love to do. For some of those people, this change might represent something really exciting and wonderful. Maybe it's kind of scary. Maybe it's the future's unknown for them. Who knows? Part of being a good leader, I think, is to be in touch with who you have working for you. Not, I've got a senior manager of this and a director of this and a manager of that working for me. Who are they as people?
They get excited when you ask about their family. They get excited when you remember that their dog was in some sort of competition. They remember or learn that you have a garden.
Thanks for remembering. Anyways, I love my garden. Look at that. You just got, right? You just witnessed that. Like,
what you bring to the team, right? I told Scott just the other day, I said, Scott, I talk about you all the time. And by the way, I hope your pedestal's not too big when somebody talks to you, because I have built you up in the areas that he's strong at, for example. Right. And Amanda on our team, holy cow, she is like data analytics, process oriented.
Impressive.
And so, when you know that, so not only do you know them personally, and you understand what gets them excited, you also know how they could jump into this and get excited.
Yes.
Because we tend to gravitate toward the tasks that we like to do and be good at them.
Spot on. I mean, I think it's about really understanding our people. I mean, that's whether you're in a mode of change in an organization or not, I think that's just number one job of a leader. Understand each human being who works for you, their needs, wants, their aspirations, their desires, the challenges they have, their abilities. That's really if I, just kind of saying it as I'm thinking it out loud, but that's really number one role of a leader. And then I think when the change happens, or the change is brought, say, down from on high, then that leader can assess, given these people, how will each person respond? Important for each person to know. And I think really importantly for that leader to think through, what do I actually tangibly expect of them? So if senior leadership hasn't been specific, they just say, hey, we're going to implement this new collaborative work process. And that's what they've said. And they've said there's a lot of pie in the sky things about what's going to happen in a year after we've implemented it, and there's going to be some technology to support and all of that. But if those senior guys or gals haven't really defined fully what that means to my team, then that is my job to say, what does that mean? Will this be a shift in, how they interact with certain other departments or functions? Will this be a change in, how they're thinking about or using customer data? If they want to get to the next level, and I know I have 3 very career-hungry, ambitious people working for me, so how do I handle that? Because some of them might think we're slowing career and promotions down. You really have to think about that and think about, what do I behaviorally need them to do? And then what do I do to motivate? Really, it's a bit of a selling job. Today, most of us have some kind of selling role. We have to enroll people in some capacity, even if we're not in direct sales. It's how do you make that attractive and interesting to that human being, given their current life experience and context? Brilliant change masters make it simple, but that's because they've thought through all the complexities and they boil it down to each person, and each person has what they need, and then they're motivated, and then they move forward and they feel they've created it. It hasn't just been imposed upon them.
and they started knowing that they will be changing over time, and that just because they planned it doesn't mean it's going to unfold the way that it needs to unfold. Yet the resilience and the adaptability that comes into play now has a place to keep that path in the general direction. And that makes me wonder about change. Do companies go through natural cycles that to change they have to grow, or to grow they have to change?
Yes, I believe just change is it's a competency.
One of my favorite books from last year is The Fourth Industrial Revolution. And I'm going to link to this and Change Management, the people side of change that you mentioned at the beginning.
Yeah.
This book, it talks about the changes, and that everybody says we're still in the third industrial revolution, yet Klaus Schwab is talking about all the elements that are in place that actually indicate we're already at the beginning, if not already in the fourth. And what does that mean? There's a portion of people out there that think robots are going to come get their jobs. Well, that's likely. So how can those skills, and what can managers and individuals do today that apply those skills in a new way, to use the robots, to be able to think about, well, how does the problem solving, we're going to go into soft skills, the problem solving, decision making, creativity, ability to, and willingness to be open to ideas and challenge what's going on in a productive way for the betterment of not only ourselves and the people on our team, also for what we can take our company. Because all those people who are at risk of their jobs being replaced somehow with automation, that doesn't mean that they're replaced. It means that the jobs that are out there are changed. And in his opinion, and I like it, I'm going to agree with it here, is that whatever jobs go away, new jobs will be created. So all the jobs that are going away, we just don't know what the new jobs are going to be.
To me, that's discovery again, right? That goes back to discovery and bigger possibilities than we ever imagined. It's scary, but then change is scary, naturally, but it's also exciting. And I think it's finding the opportunity inherent in the situation. That's the challenge. That's the job of anyone doing anything.
And the life cycle of companies is decreasing. Only 4 in 100 startups will last 10 years. I personally blame it on instant gratification. We were talking about that a little bit more. Because change isn't happening as quickly as we think it should. And because we think it should happen fast and it doesn't, we tend to think we're failing. And once we fail, now we've got a negative outlook. And if we create our own reality, now what? It's a horrible downward cycle. And that's not the only downward cycle. I think that is one that I see when people come to work with me, they've plateaued and they just started to dip a little. And when they've in this dip that's a little bit, now they're scared. They're really scared. Like, am I going to go back up? Is this the beginning of a change? And we're going to go into something new? And they need that place, that space to work and be. And I say need, it's necessary. A space to think, a space to be, and a space to slow down.
Yeah, you're right. I think people don't give it enough time. And it goes back to, you've got to milestone it out. You know, this isn't, okay, overnight it's going to happen. It's more 2 years. It's 1 year. Give yourself some space, some slack, take a deep breath. This takes time. Anything involving people, whether it's within your company or your customers, you know, you're trying to change your customers or trying to break into a new market, it takes time.
Yes.
The fact that everything's so instant gratification with technology, I think that makes us expect things immediately too.
We've talked about a lot today, and I want to know from you, why is it bold to consider making one behavior change at a time?
It's bold because it's what a lot of people think maybe sounds either too small, it doesn't sound macro enough, we're trying to drive big change in the organization, so we need to come out with lots of PowerPoint slides and slide decks and big meetings and conversations and a lot of emails and a lot of bullets and a lot of explanation. Anything you want to implement, whether that's a new process, a new structure, a new strategy, break into a new market with new customers, all of those things require human beings to actually do something different, to show up in a different way, to role model new behaviors. And so one behavior might sound either too small or too tangible, too tactical maybe, and yet every change can be boiled down to human beings doing something different. I mean, it's so simple, yet often overlooked, because we're in the rush to do everything right away, but we got to boil it down.
All program notes will be at voiceofboldbusiness.com/P126. That is voiceofboldbusiness.com/P for program 126. You may also search for Change Happens One Behavior at a Time. You have listened. Stop by and rate us and subscribe and make sure that you are listening in where all podcasts are sold. Share your story and your experience, because it's through the collective stories of what Amy and I were speaking about today, how you are experiencing the world, what you are learning with every action that you take, that defines what it means to lead and be an effective leader today. Don't forget that change happens one behavior at a time.
Subscribe at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com and get more information, program notes, and past episodes. Bold leaders approach each situation and focus on action to achieve a higher level of leadership. Jessica Dewell, your business advocate, is the host of the Voice of Bold Business Radio. Thank you for joining us.